Welcome back. Therapists are seeing a growing trend from employees needing to decompress. They're overwhelmed and overstimulated easily, and more are struggling to return to the office on a daily basis after being home for 2 years because of the pandemic. And the statistics on mental health are alarming. According to the National Alliance on Mental Illness, more than half of Americans report that COVID-19 has had a negative impact on their mental health. In February 2021, almost 41% of adults in Arizona reported symptoms of anxiety or depression, yet 27% were unable to get the counseling or therapy that they needed. And more than 1 million adults in Arizona have a mental health condition. That's more than 4 times the population in Scottsdale. So let's talk about it. Joining me now is Sharli Berry, a mental health counselor at Destiny's Door Counseling Services. Sharli, great to have you.
Thanks for having me.
This is so disturbing. When we were talking about this earlier, you're seeing more and more people ask for a leave of absence, asking for mental breaks. Talk about this. Why is that?
Well, I believe people have always needed the mental health breaks. And as a matter of fact, they've always taken the mental health breaks. It's just been under the guise of a physical illness or a family emergency. Historically, people have not been able to take time off for mental illness, but it's acceptable for physical illness.
Right. But now, post-pandemic,
Correct.
it's a lot harder now.
It's a lot harder. You know, people are taking a little bit more time to adjust and being back in the office. So it's actually a thing called adjustment disorder. So people can be diagnosed with adjustment disorder and they can request time off because they're having difficulty adjusting to being back at work.
Wow, so that's actually a thing. It's
Yes.
been termed.
Yes.
So, I mean, what are some of these struggles? Are they just, is the workload more, or are they just feeling like, you know what, I've had my, foot off the gas for a while, and now this is just too much for me?
Well, it's a combination of both because when they're coming back to the office, of course, that workload is a little heavier because a lot of people are playing catch up.
Yeah.
So they're catching up on things that they were not able to do from home. And also, they're having trouble adjusting to being back in the office space, communicating with their coworkers and with their supervisors face to face.
Yes, because a lot of it's been through Zoom and
Right.
all those online meetings. Okay, so how do you help people feel less overwhelmed? And we're going to break it up into 2 parts, starting with the employee. What can they do?
Well, they can take a planned break. Walk away from your desk. Take a lunch. Don't eat at your desk. Don't take your lunch and work during your lunch break.
Right.
Especially now that it's getting cooler outside, you can take a walk around the block. So people don't understand that just that blood circulation helps those normal, serotonin and dopamine levels increase.
You also talk about get a clear explanation of expectations. Give me an example of that.
So go back and read your job description. Read your offer letter. What was in your job description? What did they say was the expectations? Are there quota that you have to meet? Is there a timeline and deadlines that you have to meet? And if you're asked to go above and beyond that, go back and talk to them and say, hey, my job description says this, but you're asking me to do this. Right, so can we get clear on what it is that I am really supposed to be doing here?
So that goes along the lines of one of your other recommendations, set your boundaries, learn how to say no. That can be really hard for a lot of people. So give me an example of that.
So for me, for example, I don't have my work email on my phone. So if I'm not at my laptop, then if somebody says, I emailed you, I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
Right, so if it's not, the building's burning down or something like that, it's not going to get answered until the next day.
Interesting.
So I'm not constantly on my phone looking for, to respond to work email.
Right. Okay, so let's talk about the employer. What can they do?
The employer can set the expectations and be clear on what's expected. A lot of the times that people are stressed out is because they don't know exactly what they're supposed to be doing.
Yes.
And they can also be compassionate because people are being more open and more vocal about their mental health issues or concerns, then the employer needs to be able to understand that. And a lot of times the supervisors need to help themselves.
Right, and be able to listen.
Yes.
Yeah. All right, Sharli, thank you so much for all that great advice, great tips.